and the launch of Ask Me for a Blessing, You Know You Need One. And we are thrilled to begin the program portion of our evening with a distinguished man of faith, the mayor of New York City, Eric Adams. Thank you for being with us here tonight. And Mr. Mayor, I consider this ministry, my Ask Me for a Blessing ministry, an only in New York kind of experience, you know, based on the different types of people that I meet and the encounters I have. And for those of us who live in New York, we know that part of the charm of this city is New Yorkers. And I am privileged to be out on Madison Avenue sharing the good news of God's love, and thank you for sharing a few words with us tonight. And I invite you to the pulpit.
A powerful book and a powerful thought. And I was always wondering why Dan had this easiness about him in a very difficult job, and now I completely understand it. I'm going to enjoy reading every aspect of the book. The mayor of the city, first black bar president, state senator, former New York City police captain. That's my glory, but it's not my story. Growing up in South Jamaica, Queens, dyslexic, bullied as a child, walked in the classroom, called the dumb student, arrested by police officers, assaulted, went on to come into my law enforcement career, but at the heart of my life is the church. And only one story I would share that would personify that. We went to a small church in South Jamaica, Queens. We used to call it the Cheers Church. Everyone knew your name, and everyone was glad you came. We would go during the day, have a break, then go back at night. We knew during the break time you would have a meal, and Mommy did not have the means to have that meal with the 6 children she was raising on her own. After one evening service, a car caravan of women pulled up to our home. They started unloading boxes of groceries. They placed it on our countertop, and they prayed with us. Late that evening, I went downstairs and I looked in the boxes because I was just so excited that we were going to have real milk, not the powdered milk, real eggs, not the powdered eggs, and not the flapjacks made out of just flour and water. The boxes were open. Half a box of spaghetti, half a jar of mayonnaise. Everything was in half. Those women could not afford to buy groceries for us. They gave us half of what they had in their cupboards. And I remember crying that day and realizing just the power of God on earth. And often while we're on this journey as the mayor, I ask myself, what happened to that? I did not know homelessness as a child. We took in each other. I did not know families going without clothing. We gave clothing away what we were not wearing, or even when someone purchased something, they would buy something for the person on the block that needed something. I can't help but to believe if Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John was here right now, they'd be with the migrants, the homeless, and they would be talking to people who are bringing around pain on our streets. I can't help but to believe that. And so I know just the mere fact I'm in this church, I'm singing to the choir. This is choir practice. Too many people are singing off key out there. This is our opportunity to live our faith. And I'm committed every day to doing so. I thank those women who planted a seed in me as a child and watered and nurtured it as an adult. Mommy's not here with me. She transitioned last year. But I had a beautiful life with her as she raised her 6 children. She loved them all, but everyone knows she adored me. And I'm going to continue to know that her blessing is here. I hear her all the time as she whispered in my ear when I was a child, "Baby, you got this. You got this. And I'm saying to you, New Yorkers, we got this. We got this. Thank you for this book. Thank you for the blessing, because we really need it. Thank you very much.
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor. And now we are hearing from another man of God, presiding bishop of the Episcopal Church, the Most Reverend Michael Curry. Just as thrilled for his presence among us. We always know he brings good news. And thank you for writing the foreword to this book, Bishop. I invite you to the pulpit.
Well, Adrian, I want to thank you for writing the book and for sharing the story, and all the good people who have gathered here today to hear you tell us a little bit about it and inspire us to be God's blessings in the world. And I want to thank you for inviting me to be able to be here. It was just wonderful to hear the mayor a few moments ago. And it's wonderful to hear politicians not only speak in church, but actually know what they're talking about. We would account that a blessing. And so I want to thank you for this, but above all, thank you for the witness that this book is testimony to the power of blessing. And when you wrote, I don't remember when it was, a couple of months ago, I guess, about this, I jumped on it and told my executive coordinator, who is the person who actually keeps the Episcopal Church running. People don't know that, but it's actually, I'm the front guy. And I said, find a way to make this happen. And she did. And my reason for it is found in a hymn that we talked about in the podcast. And y'all know the hymn. I'm not going to sing it, but it's joy to the world. You know that one? The Lord is come. Let earth receive her King. Let every heart prepare him room. And heaven and nature sing. Heaven and nature sing. And the last verse says, he rules the world with truth. Oh, we need some truth in our time. He rules the world with truth and grace. And there's a chapter on grace in the book. I now have a hard copy. I had the Kindle. I like the hard copy better. Truth and grace. And he makes the nations prove the glories of his righteousness, which is another word in Hebrew. The word justice and righteousness are basically the same word. The glories of his righteousness and the wonders of his love. And the wonders of his love. But there's a key in the third verse. Now, this isn't a sermon. I want you to know that. And I'm tempted because this is a pulpit, last time I checked. But it's not a sermon. But if it was, my text would be the third verse, not always paid attention to in the hymn, Joy to the World. Because in the third verse, check this out. No more let sins and sorrows grow, and thorns infest the ground. He comes, talking about Jesus now. He comes to make his blessings flow far as the curse is found. His blessings flow far as the curse is found. And then we will know the wonders of his love. And we will sing joy Joy to the world. The Lord is come. Now, I'm here to tell you, I'm going to be 70 years old next year. I know that's older than some. I can tell not as old as many. But I got to tell you that I'm clear about my task. My task is not to make my light shine. My task now is to find those lights that are reflecting the light of God's love and life and figure out how I can get them to shine far as the curse is found. And I'm here to tell you tonight that what this sister has done that is caught, if you will, in the stories of this book is a story of how you let the light shine. The Bible says in the first chapter of John, the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness will not overcome it. We got to let that light shine. There's too much darkness in the land and around the globe. There's darkness when people in a land like Ukraine must fight just to be free. There's darkness when a nation is divided and polarized when we don't have to be. There's darkness. Darkness in the land and darkness in this world. But it was dark when baby Jesus was born. And that light shined in the darkness, and the darkness could not overcome it. We need some blessings to lighten up this world. The curse just darkens. But the blessings, oh, have mercy. The blessings, now, this isn't a sermon, I know that. But the blessings can light up the darkest place, and it doesn't take a lot of light to do it. I was on an airplane, and everybody, I'm always on airplanes, but this one particular time, everybody who was getting on, it was a smaller plane, looked like they were mad about something. This wasn't too long after we had been released from our necessary captivity in COVID, and that was necessary for our good and for the good of each other. But we had begun to release, and it was one of the earlier times I got on a plane. I remember I was on this smaller plane, and everybody who got on looked angry or didn't look happy. And this mother got on holding her baby. And the baby was just looking at everybody doing what babies do. And people started to smile. Angry people, if that's where we were, began to see hope. That maybe the virus of COVID, maybe the virus of political animosity, maybe the virus of long systemic simmering racism, maybe the virus of hatred and bigotry, maybe that virus will not have the last word, and maybe in that baby's face, the light did shine, and the darkness did not overcome it. This book is about letting the light shine. By letting it shine, by calling forth the blessings. I was reading in the paper the other day, it was Mental Health Awareness Day. And one of the psychologists was on, I don't know, I think it was CNN, just kind of talking about, we've come through a traumatic time and we're still in the midst of it, and there's some PTSD going on. Look, that's why I keep telling folk in church, cut each other some slack. Because we got what I call COVID crazy. And so we got to cut each other some slack, And the truth is that as the psychologist was saying, she said there are a number of things you can do. Self-awareness, paying attention, journaling, she talked about. But one of the things she suggested, and Adrian talks about this in the book, she said, something, you might want to adopt an attitude of gratitude, or to say it mathematically, you might want to count your blessings. Because when you start adding up instead of subtracting, you will discover that you got a mountain of blessings. And when you've got a mountain of blessings, you can't keep them to yourself. You got to go out and bless somebody else and let them build mountains of blessing and let them bless somebody else until the whole world gets blessed far as the curse is found. Well, I'm going to stop now, but one last thought. I was getting on a plane leaving Raleigh, North Carolina, where my home is, and heading to Washington a couple of weeks ago for the National Cathedral was having a memorial service at the request of the British Embassy for Her Majesty, Queen Elizabeth II. And so I was getting ready to get the flight to D.C. To go and participate in the service. And I was in the TSA line. I had collar on, in the TSA line. And this man came up and he just said, well, thank you for what you do. And I kind of said, for what I do? He said, aren't you a man of God? I said, I hope so, but I get called a lot. That's not one of the things I usually get called. I said, yeah, well, I hope so. I said, I don't know what you do, but thank you for what you do, because you just did something for me. This actually happened, Adrian. You just blessed me. Thank you for that blessing, and God bless you. So then we got into a conversation. He asked where I was going, and I told him where I was going and for what. And he said, oh, the Queen, she was a lovely lady. I said, yes, a lovely lady. I said, where are you going? He said, oh, I'm on my way to Ukraine. And I kind of looked, I said, well, he's too old to be, he's not in the military. I mean, he's like not close to my age. I said, he ain't fighting nothing, so I knew he wasn't going for in the military. I said, what are you going to Ukraine for? And he said, my wife is from there. And I figured out he's a medical doctor, but he didn't say that, but it put two and two together. And he said, for the last year during the conflict, we've gone over, and a group of us from our hospital have gone over to provide medical assistance, to relieve the first responders and the medical folk there who are constantly on call, constantly. And I opened up, this actually happened. I took out my wallet and emptied it. That may be in the Guinness Book of Records for an Episcopalian. That man was such a blessing, I had to bless him that he could bless others. And it was all I didn't know what else to do. That's the power of blessing. That's the way the curse is banished. And what that man simply is doing without fanfare, what Adrian is talking about in this book, is how the curse is ended and the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness will never overcome it. God bless you. God love you. And Adrian, you keep on keeping on.
Thank you for that sermon, Bishop. If that wasn't proclaiming the gospel, I don't know what was, right? Call a spade a spade. And thank you all for being here. We continue with a little interview portion of the evening. My friend, fellow Episcopalian journalist and author Retta Blaney is here. And Retta, the name of your book, Working on the Inside, the Spiritual Life of Actors. And she has interviewed Christian Chenoweth, Liam Neeson, Felicia Rashad. So happy that she's interviewing me. And Retta also saw this ministry in action and recently wrote an article for the Living Church. So Retta, let's take a seat.
Okay, this book is a delight. I just couldn't keep reading it because it was so touching and so moving. Yeah. I'll hold.
Okay, that works.
Okay? Yeah. All right. When I loved the book so much, but I just kept stopping. There's so much, it is so rich. So I decided to turn it into a devotional. So each morning I would read just one section and reflect on that and think how I could take that into my day and incorporate it into my life. It's just beautiful. And it might be the only devotional I've ever read that is actually really funny in places, really funny. So it's a delight. And yes, I did get to observe Adrian's ministry outside, and I knew why she's the perfect person. I saw how people responded to her and how she responded to them. And I'm going to share a story that came after the book, so it's not in there, but it shows how Adrian is perfect for what she's doing. A man came up to her with a question, and I think it would really throw a lot of people, and they wouldn't have known how to respond, or they would have just dismissed him as being egotist or a frivolous question. But Adrian heard the pain under this question, and she had compassion, and she listened, and they had a wonderful encounter. So I'm going to tell you the question, and I'll let Adrian tell you her response. So there she is out there on Madison Avenue in front of the church, and this man walks up and says, "Why does everyone want to have sex with me?" That's not exactly, my mother is in the hospital, she needs prayers. So here's what Adrian did.
You picked a good one, Retta. Well, if there's such a thing as a compassionate poker face, that was step one, to really maintain composure and remain engaged. Certainly something I've learned over the years is that never assume anything. There are a lot of surprises in this ministry and all the different types of folks you meet. And so I went with a skill they teach you for pastoral care as well as other disciplines too. And that's simply to say something along the lines of, "Tell me more about that." And then, depending on where it went, I might have needed to get out. But like you said, I could tell there was something there. And people are ready to reveal that often, even to a stranger in this public space. And he proceeded to talk about how some of the men he had dated made him feel objectified. And I think we ended up having a conversation about worth, our self-worth, and I'm pretty sure I was able to ask him the question, how do you think God sees you? And that's often a very fruitful question. And I honestly don't remember all of the details from it, but we did have a powerful encounter. I think he cried a little bit, and we had a blessing and a prayer, and it's just such a privilege to be with people in these moments.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Very good. I'm wondering how this book, writing the book, selecting the stories, reflecting on them, and putting them together for the book, how has that changed you personally and as a priest, if those two are distinguishable?
Well, I'd say that the ministry itself, being out there with people, and certainly in conjunction with parish ministry over the years, has made me more of a pastor, and it's allowed me to live into my spiritual gifts I think it's really important for us to kind of be able to name the ways that God has gifted us and blessed us with attributes that are to be used for the spread of the kingdom. For me, evangelism is one of those. I like to talk to people about God, and if I'm so lucky to talk about Jesus too. And another one for me is exhortation, or just encouragement and affirming people, building them up, cheering them on. You combine that with the care and concern of a pastor, and it's like this ministry was made for me. I just sort of found my way into it. God led me into it. And I come alive in it. I forgot the rest of the question, Retta.
And did it change your how you think of yourself, or how were you changed personally in writing it? Because you've been doing it for 7 years, but then when you sit down to write something, that's when you, like, I'm a theater critic, and I don't always understand the play so much or what I've seen until I'm sitting home and writing it, and then it all comes out. So as you were writing it, did you learn?
Yes, because you process things, and it brings a little more clarity. And I discovered through this book that my sole purpose on this earth is to proclaim the good news of God's love. And it's manifesting in one way, being out on the sidewalk. And I know we're all called to that. But for some reason, it really has hit home in a way that, Jesus, I will follow where you lead. I'm ready. I'm surrendered. Here I am.
Wonderful. It makes me think of that passage in the Bible where Jesus looks at the people and he had compassion on them because they were like sheep without a
shepherd.
Yeah, sheep without a shepherd. And I think that's an awful lot of people. They know they need something, but either they've never had a church experience or they've had a negative church experience, and it would never occur to them to walk through these doors. But when they're out there and they walk by, the day I was there, one man stopped and he said he had seen Adrian there before, but on that particular day he decided to reach out to her and talk with a family issue. And I think that you're meeting an unmet need for many people, because they wouldn't find that solace because they just wouldn't come in. And they see you and they see that sign and they either make an impulse one day or they come back again. Mm-hmm. And it's like, and I think of Jesus, he looked at them with compassion, and you look at people with compassion.
Thank you.
Yes, and so I think that you are, I'm sure you can feel it, that you're reaching people who wouldn't normally come in, that you have an atheist who now comes to the church all the time.
Yeah. And then they'll tell you that they wouldn't be talking to me otherwise, like if I was behind the doors rather than outside of them.
Yeah, there was one man who was rushing by, he was in a hurry, and he looked at the sign and then he said, "When will you be here again? I can't stop." And so he said he wanted to come
He came back the next week.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Very good. How are we doing? Are we okay? We're good? Okay. So let's see. I don't want to ruin too many of these stories that are inside, that you're really going to love them, but when I was there that day, there was a Jewish man who stopped, and he was as Adrian said later, he was a talker. He had many questions, and you got to tell him about Jesus, but he was surprised that Adrian didn't try to convert him, but you were very respectful with him. And so, you never know what's going to come up out there, right?
We actually prayed that the number of Jewish people on the face of the earth would increase. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that God would reach people through that faith tradition.
Yeah, because he had told her he was worried that, well, first of all, he looked at the sign and looked at Adrian and said, "Is this some kind of holiday?" Because she wasn't. What are these Christians celebrating now? So. Let's talk about one of the humorous ones then, as long as
sure.
I love the breakfast one.
The guy who kneels on the sidewalk. Yes. Okay. Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
Just one, right? So in this encounter was literally 10 seconds. So you have some that might drag and some very short. And I was standing out there, and he comes and he kneels down before me on the sidewalk. And he has a breakfast sandwich in one hand, and he's already taken a bite, and he was chewing. And he had a Diet Coke in the other, and then he stops chewing and closes his eyes. And that's my signal. Oh, ready for the blessing.
And then he stood up and nodded and went on his way.
And then he was like, thank you, and kept on going. And there's something about the casualness of it all, that's what stood out to me. That was the lesson for me, or the reminder that God is everywhere, closer than a whisper, accessible to us. And yes, it is important to be in these beautiful spaces and wear our Sunday best, but it's also perfectly fine to come as you are. And God meets us there.
And you said in all these counters there are three present. You, the person,
and the Holy Spirit.
And the Holy Spirit.
Yeah.
And certainly the people must feel that. You feel that. But people, whether they even know what that is, whether they can identify that, they must come away feeling that Holy Spirit.
Sure, some of them do.
Yeah. And there was a man who works across the street, and he said whenever he sees Adrian, he stops and gets a blessing. And he told me it was like when your mother tells you everything's going to be all right, but your mother's not here.
No.
So he said we need that in this crazy world.
Yeah, we do.
So 7 years that's many, many blessings. And you've
Yes.
never been thrown, right? You've never been. I mean, if you can respond to why does everyone want to have sex with me, you can respond to just about anything.
Yeah, I'm keeping it real out there, Retta.
Yeah, good. And she's not going to stop either, right? This is a permanent ministry.
As long as I'm here, yeah. I love it.
It's perfect, and I've never heard of anyone else doing it anywhere. And as Bishop Curry said, and he wrote a wonderful foreword, and he talked about this is what Jesus did. He left the temple and went out to the streets, went out to the people on the streets. And you did this when you were in seminary, yes, or?
I tried it. My son said, "Want prayer," or "Got prayer," like "Got milk." What was that old slogan?
Got milk or something?
Anyway, I gave it a shot, and I had some good encounters there too. But there is something about being in front of the church. You have that like imprimatur of institutional religion, like lending credibility, in a way.
Yeah, and yet she's just there, and the sign is there. She's not reaching out and grabbing people or proclaiming, but so most people just walk by. Most people didn't even seem to notice, or they're in a hurry and they just glance and, oh, it's New York, what is this? But then, the one obviously did come when he came. He decided that one day to stop, talk about some family matters and stuff. And so she does this for a half hour, and then it was time to fold up and get back to work. It's
a great way to start the day.
It is. I loved starting the day. I didn't listen in. I just stood there. But it was a great day. And when we went in and you said, "Oh, no crises today."
Lots of times someone is in crisis, a pastoral crisis, and that's why they stop, and they might not otherwise. But that felt need.
What an opportunity.
It is such an opportunity, and it's all about love, right? Or to quote our presiding bishop, if it's not about love, it's not about God, right? Yeah. So that's what it's about.
Yes, it is, and it's lovely. Anybody at 9 o'clock on a Tuesday, come by and watch Adrian. And she has some people. One person who comes, one of the members of the congregation comes every week.
I got my regulars.
You got your regulars. Yes, it's beautiful, and you never know where this is going. I think that's what's beautiful, right? I mean, these people. You don't know how this could be changing someone. They could really be in deep pain, and then they've felt that blessing. It's a ministry that is just so special. When I asked my editor at the Living Church, I wanted to do this piece on Adrian, and he said, "Oh, Reverend Adrian is wonderful. Yes, by all means." And he said, "I think she's just terrific." So,
well, Retta, thank you for talking me up so much tonight.
Anything else you want to share with us?
I think we're good. We'll move on to book sales and signing. We're going to close the program portion of our evening with a hymn. It's on the back of your bulletin there. And then desserts will appear on this table. Books are there. I'll be signing down here. Also, as noted in your bulletin, all royalties are going to charitable causes close to my heart. My goal is to make as much money as possible and give it all away. Also, if you buy a book tonight, you're supporting a local bookstore, Logos, on the Upper East Side. And finally, the book makes for a great gift, according to Publishers Weekly. It's in the 2022 gift guide, and it's one of, thank you. So, one of 10 religion and spirituality books to make the cut this year. And so, even if you haven't read it, you can buy 10 copies for your family and friends and be confident in your purchase. And finally, before we sing that hymn, I do want to thank folks who made this event come together tonight, especially Florin Georgescu, Susan Ridgway, and Thomas Reefer. Couldn't do it without you. Please do clap. And I invite a member of the Incarnation Choir, Paul Augustine, up to lead us in song.
Spirit in this place.
Thank you for coming. God bless.